We get hyped. Everybody round, 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 we know we get hyped.
Welcome back to the WREC European Championship. I'm Excoundrel. I've switched things up and I've brought in Stuart to chat through the next couple of games with me. Of course, that was a pretty exciting first series. Stu, what did you make of it from the sidelines?
Yeah, it was really interesting. The draft adaptations, the game as well, getting them huge team fights around objectives, which we don't really see too often. You know, over the past few weeks, it's kind of been handshaking objectives. So seeing these big, massive team fights now around objectives and the draft adaptation as well. I was hoping to see Yumi in that second game. I was like, yes, play it, please. But unfortunately, we didn't. Maybe in this series.
I think Senna works just as well in that situation again, just making Garen, or supporting Garen and kind of becoming a bit of a powerhouse in the mid to late game. Of course, I think that, you know, before we kick things off, we're going to have to hear a little bit from Hells about the key moments in this series to look forward to. So let's go over to Hells. He's going to chat us through some of the big moments to expect in this this matchup.
Alright, so about the key points of this game. These are going to be very important. So the first one is going to be different support playstyle. And I want to add to this, by the way, that Supremacy did a very interesting thing. They seem to have swapped the support and the Baron lane around. So Sanji and JustFake seem to have swapped, but what we've seen from JustFake is these very aggressive supports. And the next thing is, these teams are really enjoying the traditional AD carries. You know, instead of going for the Orianna, Ziggs, Morgana, or whatever in the bot lane, these teams seem to be enjoying on Aphelios side, especially the Vayne and the Kai'Sa. And then on Supremacy side, Varus. We know Varus is a priority pick, and then the next thing we talk about is both teams had a really rough time in the first round. The matches in the first round were very hard, up against Gamelord and Team Queso. They tried, but these are just the top level teams. So it's going to be interesting to see what both of these teams are going to be bringing to the table today and see which team comes out ahead. So now about the key points, let's toss it back to the casters, Excoundrel and Stuart.
Yeah, and I think the last one is something that was really important. Like, it's difficult to know how good these teams are because they were in very tough matchups in their first matchups here in the WREC. But of course, you know, the reality of it is, Stu, that you need to beat the best teams in this competition eventually. But of course, no one ever really wants to start out with that matchup because it kind of limits your growth throughout the tournament. As we've seen with Weigers, people can grow, teams can grow, they can get better as time goes on. Should we take a look at the rosters here for these two teams? Stu, I want you to talk me through some of the names that we see and whether we should be looking out for anyone in particular.
Yeah, I think Hells already spoke about probably the main kind of focus of this series, really. It's the Supremacy lane swap. We see Sanji now in the support role and JustFake up in the Baron lane. Now, JustFake, we know that he's a Baron lane before. People might know that he was a Baron laner before, so it's nice to see him back up in the Baron lane. They've tested this a bit in community tournaments that have happened in the past few weeks. This worked quite well for them, so they're going to be very interesting going into that one. And on the side of Aphelion, we got 0-2 and Arrogance as well in the jungle, that mid-jungle synergy, which you saw a little bit in their first series. But as you said already, you know, against Gamelord, against Team Queso, you have to beat these teams, but it feels like you're kind of on the back foot already when you're against them teams. So I'm really interested to see how both these teams will adapt in a very close series coming into this one.
Now, I've got something pretty special before we jump into this series ready for you. It's a brand new sort of WREC exclusive. I mean, we're really turning the creative cogs here. It is our man Hells Devil with his brand new own titled Broken as Hells. Oh, it's me. I'm not Hells, but you'll get rid of me in just a minute.
Get away. We're going to be talking about Orianna right here because this champion is broken as Hells. And Orianna has just been so dominant throughout these matches. And she has it all. She can easily push out the waves with her AoE damage, so she can always get lane priority. She's one of the strongest, if not the strongest late game carry in the game. And as we can see in these plays right here as well, just dominant performance in team fights, providing so much value, dealing so much damage, movement speed, ultimates, blah, 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 everything. And on top of all of that, she can position super safely around in the team fight. She's a very safe champion. She has that shield as well, and then she can support her team as well. So when someone tries to go in, give a shield to your ally, give that movement speed, she has it all. It's also a beautiful looking champion. What is missing from Orianna? We're gonna have to see Orianna being prioritized in the draft in the next matches. I love Orianna, you guys love too. So that is it for Broken as House. Up to the casters again.
Orianna, I mean, the sunglasses made it. The sunglasses made it for me, Stuart. The Broken as Hell there. Orianna is kind of in a good spot. You know, I think competitively, a lot of teams value her. Not as much in the mid lane anymore, mostly in that dragon lane position. But she is super, super good right now, Stu.
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, more focus in the dragon lane because we have these AD bruisers and how strong the top side is at the moment, because we don't really have a lot of them AP champions up in the top side of the map. But yeah, Broken as Hells. I'm excited to see what the next champion is. I'm hoping maybe, it's Garen, Yuumi, maybe. Come on, Hells, maybe for next time. But we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, Orianna, a very high priority pick. And even though we go into this one, I think with the key points that Hells have mentioned, with these two teams, they haven't really been focusing a lot on the AP champions down in the duo lane. They've been playing a lot more of the traditional AD carriers, so we're going to be seeing if they've adapted maybe throughout the weeks going into this one, or maybe going into the different ones, going into the second game.
You can see Aphelion versus Supremacy. We've said goodbye to Principality. Unfortunately, Weigers will now be awaiting their competition from the next round of the losers bracket. And Aphelion versus Supremacy, of course, loser is going to drop out here. We are heading into picks and bans relatively shortly. I would love to see, as you mentioned, what these kind of drafts look like. As you mentioned, these guys are more traditional teams. They stick to kind of the more, I guess, meta or like traditional meta champions, which is not kind of pushing the boundaries with these kind of funky AP champions in the bot lane and some sort of crazy additions like set mids. So going to be interesting to see which team comes out on top in that particular scenario. We are obviously awaiting picks and bans. Is there anything else that you think might come up in the picks and bans phase that you think will be either an absolute guaranteed ban or an absolute pick between these two teams?
I think the champions that we always have to talk about is Jace and Set. I think them two champions are still quite high priority. You can see that sometimes on the red side, teams don't like to ban any of them at all, and you like to trade one for the other. So either the Jace for the Set or the Set for the Jace, which is quite interesting on the red side of the map. But going into these bans, we're going to have to see what is going to be the high priority. I think blue side bans are always the main thing as well. You see Thresh being banned already now, even though Just Fake is now up in the Baron lane. We've seen Sanji also play Thresh as a priority down in the support role as well. So already trying to focus that support champion pool that might not be that wide for Sanji because he's had to lane swap so quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Just Fake's a really great player, by the way. So I think he's going to be excelling in whatever role he's in. I've got to give a shout out to my boy Carrot Cop. That man is he's a lovely bloke. We know him all the way back from the UK Premiership event that happened last year. So he's been kind of grinding out in sort of the amateur to grassroots level of Wild Rift esports, and so it's good to see him get his chance on the big stage with the Wild Rift European Cup. We're going to see the Orianna banned away. So Broken as Hell, banned as hell is gone away on the blue side bans here for AE, and we're waiting for the final ban here from Supremacy.
Yeah, will it be the Jace? It will be the Jace in the end. So priority picks a moment. Camille, Gragas is still open as well. I think them two are going to be the main ones, and it is going to be the Camille first pick. Now, on the side of Supremacy, do you take away the Galio to stop that Camille-Galio combo that we've mentioned about before, or do they want to go for something else? Lee Sin is still open as well. Other champions as well. Will they prioritize maybe a Dragon Lane champion for maybe Carrot Cob? We've seen him play Xayah. We've seen him play Varus as well, which is also still open. Has been a very high priority for Supremacy. Counting down the time here, they're definitely taking a long time to maybe think about what they want to prioritize.
Gragas gets picked up here. Interesting that Gragas has risen so heavily in terms of priority this week in competitive. He only got a very small buff to his base AD, but a lot of people are kind of bringing him back into the fold now, which is very interesting to see that he is receiving the same kind of priority that he saw last year in Wild Rift Esports. It's been a while since Gragas has had that kind of luxury in terms of where he sits in the draft. We'll have to see what the second pickup here is going to be for Team Supremacy. Anything that stands out? Lee Sin is a good, solid jungler, probably one of the best in the meta, with the Kazakhs being banned away as well. That makes a lot of sense, and it's great into Camille.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you've got two champions there already that can disengage away from Camille. You got the explosive cast from Gragas. You got the kick from Lee Sin as well. So two really good champions. They haven't picked away the Galio though. So maybe Aphelion could look to try and go towards this Camille Galio combo. Interesting, our Supremacy didn't focus out on Varus. Maybe not kind of trapping themselves in one place. There's the Morgana as well. Obviously can be flexed around. I think that's one of the main things why Gragas, I feel like, is such a high priority at the moment, is because it's such a huge flex pick. We've seen it being played in the support. We've been seeing it play mid lane as well for AP. We saw last game in the Baron lane as well as that top lane kind of tank. And we've also seen it in the jungle. So it's that kind of four-way flex pick on the red side, which we normally see for picks as well. We normally see them sort of flex picks. But now Olaf as well. Interestingly enough, we got banned twice in the previous series, and I think Olaf's another champion that surprisingly has gone a lot high priority over the past few weeks.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see Olaf get such high priority. Now, I feel like that might have been in the first series because of just Fowlon being a really, really good Olaf player. But, you know, I think it's interesting to see Olaf starting to rise up. That's going to be the Corki getting picked up here for Team Supremacy. So I imagine that's going to go over to Carrot Cop. I know Carrot Cop is a bit of a Corki player. So that, to me, strikes me as the most likely area for this Corki on Team Supremacy's side. Interesting though, the Olaf with the Morgana, you know, you don't necessarily need Morgana as Olaf, but it just offers you that extra moment of invulnerability or like inability to be locked down, which can sometimes be the make or break when it comes to Olaf plays. So but obviously you can also end up wasting it at the same time when you pop ult and Morgana shield on the same target. So it's a very tricky balance to run with. And we'll see what the final pick, or rather the fourth pick here for Team Supremacy is going to be. I imagine you pick your support in this scenario because you don't want to give away a huge amount.
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of mid lane bans in this second section. Yeah, there's a lot of mid lane bans in this second part of this pick and ban. We've already got Zed banned, Ari banned, Diana banned. I think the main thing about this is that both Corki and Morgana can be played in the mid lane. We've seen it before, Jack's ban as well as the last one. So it's quite interesting to see both teams focus out mid lane bans, because at the moment we don't really see mid lane picks on either side, but we do see possibilities. You know, as mentioned, you know, it can be Corki being flexed to the mid lane, can be Morgana flexed to the mid lane as well. But for now, we're just going to be seeing a lot of mid lane bans. It's going to be Nami, interestingly enough. I haven't really seen Sanji play Nami before. A very interesting combination with Corki as well. But there's Galio. Interesting enough, didn't get banned out. So there's a lot of team fight presence at the moment on the side of Felion. And Jarvan, wow.
Okay, so it's Morgana AP carry bot with like
Galio?
No, Jarvan support, right? It's Morgana AP bot with Jarvan support, and then it's got to be Galio mid. Because the problem is if you like, who are you running mid? Who are you running mid if you don't run either Morgana or Galio mid? I guess it could be I guess it could be Galio Jarvan bot, which is interesting. It's Corki mid as well with the Kai'Sa coming out here for Team Supremacy. My God, what is this comp? This is a wild comp. It's very all in, and I think lacks a lot of consistent damage output the longer the game goes. But it can be super good in the mid game. Plenty of CC and lots of snowball potential around objectives. So that's where I'll be looking, you know, to keep my eyes on for AE, where they want to actually use this comp to its fullest potential.
Yeah, I feel like it might either be like Olaf mid, Camille mid, maybe. I mean, we've seen it before. I feel like it was Ruiz last time that played Olaf mid. We've seen Camille mid before work out really well, but very flexible job for Felion. But like I said, a lot of engage. But I think the main thing to focus on for the side of Supremacy is they have so many dashes. They have so many ways to get out of the, you know, initial engage. You have the Kai'Sa ultima, you have the Corki who can Valkyrie away as well. Lee Sin can dash away, Gragas can dash away as well. And they have a lot of disengage. So even if they are locked down by the Camille, by the Hextech ultimatum, they can use the, you know, the likes of Nami wave, they can use the likes of Lee Sin kick and Gragas barrel to kind of knock Camille out of the ultimate, which will allow these carries to kind of escape. So it's all about the initial, you know, engage for Aphelion to try and get onto these, you know, kind of double carry comp that we see on the side of Supremacy, which we don't really see a lot of.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's going to be really interesting to see how this pans out. Who do you think is going to win in the chat, guys? Make sure you're voting. Most analysts have gone for Supremacy. I think very few people have kind of put their ball in the other court. So I think Supremacy coming out the expected victors here. But of course, when you're drafting something as wild as this, things can definitely get shaken up. It just depends on how, again, how I think these objective fights are going to play out and where these champions are going in their particular lanes as well.
I think that's the main thing for Aphelion is like where is everyone going? I mean, you've heard our predictions, but we have to see what actually happens as we get into our first game of this series. It is Olaf mid, and it's Morgana's support with Galio carry. Now, we've seen this before for Formulation. It was actually Formulation likes to play this carry Galio down in the duo lane, more with, you know, the farming Galio being able to take a lot of farms, so he's your kind of AP source of damage. But we normally see it with more aggressive supports down in the duo lane. But with Morgana, it's a very interesting combo. But already,
yeah, that's close. Oh, he flashes him, and he has the barrier. Absolutely takes him by storm. And Senshio gets locked up for first blood. Disrespects the level 2 Olaf. You never disrespect the level 2 Olaf, man.
oh my god! I mean, Olaf mid. There you go. That's what it can offer. You know, if you use the first ability first, you can get so many slows off, and even in the there's a lot of fighting at the moment in this game, in the duo lane as well, a lot of fighting. But yeah, I feel like it was just Senshio, as you said, kind of being just disrespecting, as you said, the level 2. It was 0-2 who got a level 2 first. Look, Senshio's trying to walk up again, but the flash forward, the hacks as well on top of his third ability, just being able to burst down the Corki. And that's a really, really early advantage for Aphelion, and they're going to look to try and, you know, rotate around the map now. But with this melee into range matchup in the mid lane, you're going to see that Corki's still going to have that priority, but a little bit of an early goal leads.
Good, it's a good start. Always nice to get first blood in a matchup that you're not predicted to win. Although I will say that the bot lane is getting battered just a little bit here from Team Supremacy. They are managing to kind of zone out Mei and Baige as well a lot. You can see the gold already up about 400 for the Kai'Sa, which is kind of offsetting the lead that 0-2 has built up in the mid lane, which is pretty significant in its own right.
Yeah, I think one thing I wanted to focus on as well is that actually Karakop has decided to go for Exhaust, which I think is going to be really, really helpful for Kai'Sa and for the carries as well, because most of the time you're going to see Camille and Jarvan and Olaf as well diving on top, and 0-2 is just playing with fire. He's like, yeah, you can hit me with your Gatling gun, you can hit me with your rockets, I'm just going to be sitting here taking all the farm that I need.
How do they convert this then, Stu, into something more tangible? Like, okay, fair enough, you get a kill on an Olaf mid. What are you looking to do with an Olaf to kind of accelerate to a win condition? Because that's kind of what you always have to think about when you're looking at games like this. You're like, okay, cool, you get a kill mid, but what are you doing with it? How are you using that to win the game?
I think we're going to look at Mei maybe rotating into the mid lane and trying to excel that lead for Olaf. And then it's just all about the team fights really with Olaf. You know, he could become untargetable. He can basically run around invulnerable. And it's all about Olaf trying to get onto the carries. I think that's the main focus that we have to look on for this Olaf. As you said, it is an advantage, but it's going to be how Olaf is going to play, especially in this team fights as well, as we get into about 30 seconds until the first objectives. But with the Corki package available, with the tidal wave, with the amount of damage and the amount of engage that both these teams really have, to be honest, it's going to be about surviving really 0-2, trying to dive onto the back line, but trying to survive against this double carry comp.
I think that's one of the things that you've got to be a little bit concerned about with Aphelion is that, like, you can just run at the team and there's not much way to peel for the Olaf, especially when he has the Morgana shield and his ultimate. So he's going to be able to run down someone on your team. And if you've used the Valkyrie and you've used the ultimate, you have to be a little careful if you're Kai'Sa and Corki, because you'll end up getting absolutely obliterated. Now, I would say Senshio's done a good job of keeping pace with 0-2 as we work towards those first objective fights. We'll have to see which team comes out on top. It looks like Supremacy have managed to wrangle a gold lead back in their favor. And I do love that Karakop has also picked up the Executioner's Calling super early on here.
Yeah, reducing the healing of Olaf. Even champions like Camille will get a little bit of healing later on as well. Even Mei might be picking up something like Harmonic Echo later on if Morgana does go for that support build. But just a trade in objectives at the moment, nothing too crazy. But with this Rift Herald, you always see this with teams. As soon as you get the Rift Herald, you're looking to try and take that towards trying to get the first tower of the game. But meanwhile, in the bot lane as well, they're also doing the same in the bot lane, but just facing a little bit of trouble up in this Baron lane.
He is indeed, but he will have the support of Sanjay, who's actually overstepped, forced to flash away. There's the Hectic Ultimatum with the wave to buy some time. That was actually nicely placed in the bubble too, and it's allowed Just Fake to go for the play under the tower. There's the taunt now looking to get the knockup. We have a chain of CC coming out from Aphelion right now. There is the ultimate too. Galio drops the hero's entrance, but in the meantime, they lose that bot lane and a double kill goes down in favor. So it's 1 kill for 2, and they actually end up losing out on the first turret of the game as well.
Yeah, really well played by Sanji and JustFake, just delaying that first tower of the game and allowing the dual lane as well. We're going to see what happened in this dual lane as well. Sensho had the package, so it probably used his package to try and look for the tower dive, but it was a 3 versus 2 situation, and you can just see this double carry comp as well. Great kick by Miracle. You can see the combo of Miracle with the kick and also the package on top of that as well. And JustFake and Sanji were able to delay in the top side as well, and they were able to get the first tower of the game. So as you can see, a little bit of a gold advantage, nothing too crazy at the start of this game, but nonetheless, it is a little bit of an advantage. And when you have the double carry comp of this Kai'Sa and Corki that's very, very mobile at the same time, as mentioned during the draft phase, it's going to be really hard for Aphelion to try and look for these engages that they're going to really look to try and go towards with their comp.
Yeah, I really like that from Sanji. I think played that fight really well. Now Fantasy forced to flush away here. Miracle's not going to go much further than that, but yeah, Sanji played that top fight with the wave and the bubble really well, and then obviously followed up by JustFake playing an excellent under tower game. Even though it didn't result in him getting a kill, he delayed enough to allow his team the net advantage on the other side of the map. And if we look at where the gold's going, it is a big advantage to Carrot Cop in that bot lane. He has absolutely taken advantage of a difficult lane matchup for the Galio and the Morgana, and he is accelerating that build. And Stu, being a bit of a Kai'Sa connoisseur, knows not too far away from having all of those evolutions activated, which will be super important for the next Dragon fight.
Yeah, interestingly enough, he went for the Gluttonous Greaves, if I remember the name correctly, against a lot of crowd control, you know, on the side of Aphelion. You know, you got the Dark Binding, you got the Taunt as well, even the slows from the Olaf. Probably, I think Mercury Treads might have been a little bit better than the Gluttonous Greaves, but he wants to have the little bit of extra healing. But there's another tower dive again. They're
going straight on JustFake buying time, but unfortunately not able to do the same, not able to repeat the performance that he had on the top side of the map, and 0-2 and Baige are able to take that kill. Don't get the tower though. That was kept alive for the time being, and you can see actually with the resources being shown on the map, there will be a commitment from Aphelion to go for that bot lane tier 1.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to try and go for that bot lane tier 1 bit. Meanwhile, they're trying to get the mid lane for it as well. And Carrot Cop, I don't think that's a fight you want to take, to be honest with you. But even though Camille is isolated, so you will be able to get a little bit more damage from Kai'Sa's first ability, Icathian Rain. But in the end, it's going to look like there's going to be a priority. Bot lane tower did go down in the end, but they're trying to get this mid lane tower instead. But you can't really do much against, especially a Morgana as well, that has a lot of wave clear. And interesting enough, it seems like what happened in the duo lane for the side of Galio and Morgana, it looks like both of them are just going for just splitting the farm. And you can see that, as you mentioned already, there's a huge goal lead for Carrot Cop already. And it's kind of countered with a little bit of a gold deficit for Sanji, but it's not a lot of difference, to be fair. If you compare Sanji compared to both the duo lanes of Baigi and Mei, there's not a lot of difference. There's a huge 1,500 gold lead for Carrot Cop, and as you mentioned, going towards them evolves as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There is the wave coming through. They've already used a lot of CC here. This is the perfect time to engage, as they do. Straight into the back line, though. They've already taken down the Nami, and now they are barreling into the back line as well. This might not be the fight that you want if you are Supremacy, and it is Aphelion that is right now coming on top. They found the engages, and they clean house around the objective.
There was no peel for the backline, I feel like, in that fight. Camille was able to jump onto the backline. Olaf was able to flash onto the backline as well. And when you focus that Kai'Sa, and when you focus the backline on the side of Supremacy, all the damage is pretty much gone. You can see the Kai'Sa's pretty much isolated here. The Nami wave and everything got used. But as you can see, the Camille here diving in onto the backline, and Olaf flashing in as well. Nami just gets absolutely destroyed. And then you have the Hextech Ultimatum as well. Kai'Sa trying to flash away, Carrot Cop trying to flash away. But there's no way you can go. When you use that Nami wave already, when you use all the disengage, when you use the kick and the Gragas barrel, that's just a free engage for Aphelion. I feel like it was a little bit of misplay for Supremacy. I feel like they're the ones that don't really need to look for these fights. They're looking to try and disengage and look for looking for the second fight, but there could be another one.
There'll be another one here. It's actually Senshino who actually failed his Valkyrie over the wall. You can see they're trying to buy him time. He gets healed up just a little bit to buy some time, but in the unstoppable Olaf now chasing down Carrot Cop. He should drop. That might be a shutdown going down. It is now a bit of a resurgence for Team Supremacy as an overcommit coming out
Caracop?
from Aphelion. That's the taunt coming out from Galio, but he's by himself. The flash already been used. So has the belt. Caracop desperate to chase down as the ultimate comes through from Mail. He gets locked up in the bubble. Caracop, he needs to get out, but he doesn't. The leg sweep's there, and suddenly Fantasy cleans up. Overcommitment from Supremacy, and Aphelion punish.
In the end, I think it was Supremacy that picked off the Rift Herald, but yeah, they overextended in the team fight. They did pick up Rift Herald in the end. Nami Wave was not really too much, but as you mentioned, the Valkyrie over the wall, I think it might have actually been a bit of a deny there by the taunt as well. But again, you can see Olaf in the back line. He's kind of by himself, but you can see how much pressure he can deal with, at least in trying to save on the other side. But Caracop was trying to do as much damage as possible, diving in onto the back line, trying to get isolated members, trying to do enough damage. And you can see the overextension here, the extra movement speed that you get from the Nami, the extra slows, but he didn't realize Mei was still over the wall. A great bubble in the end for the side of Sanji, but Fantasy is there to clean up that fight, and Mei was able to survive as well. So it did look like a decent fight in the end for Supremacy, but just that little bit of an overextension, as you mentioned, and kind of just not on the same page in that team fight.
The Olaf really working out well in the mid lane right now for Aphelion. What does Supremacy need to do to get back on track here? Like, how do they put themselves into a sort of better position? You can see, and then he's going to be 0-2 versus the world. Actually forced to pop the ultimate very early on here, but he's doing well. He's going 2v1.
Wow.
You can't actually fight him. The gank not working out, and he gets the kill. Just Fake not able to capitalize, and that is a huge Olaf right now.
Yeah, that's not what you want to do if you're on the side of Supremacy. Olaf is just extremely strong at the moment. You can see already Black Cleaver completed, Death Stance completed as well. And on top of that, he's going to go for the Sterex Gauge. And yeah, this mid lane, Olaf, you mentioned a little bit about getting that advantage in the mid lane, and he's doing so well to just jump onto the back line. It's kind of what he wants to do. And yeah, Corki, that's not somewhere you want to be against a Camille. But in the end, Sanji was able to save it. And the flash, the tidal wave on top of it as well. Fantasy is just going to live in the end. And meanwhile, but he's just a distraction. I felt like this whole time, he's just a little bit of a distraction. And in the end, it's going to be another tower going on to Aphelion. 4 towers to 1 at the moment. About a 7,000 gold lead with the next objectives coming up as well. Aphelion are in full control.
They are. And honestly, it just feels like it feels like this game has been built up brick by brick, and the first brick was that level 2 all-in from 0-2 in the mid lane, and I just feel like since that point it has been giving Olaf more and more resources, letting him get away with more and more, and there isn't, as we said, that much ability to peel for the Olaf here for Team Supremacy. He should be able to get out with the empowered recall. How did they not know he was in that brush?
I'm not too sure. If you use your Jarvan W, doesn't it come up as like a little effect or something when you actually hit someone? So I'm pretty sure you hit him with his W.
If you're watching, you'll see I think you'll see something, yeah.
Yeah, I thought there was a little bit of effect, but maybe he didn't see it in the end. The Java didn't see it at the end, but yeah, able to escape with the empowered recall. And now with the package available and everything as well, you can see the Supremacy are grouping up.
Oh, they're going to catch him, but it's the Galio ultimate, which will buy time. It's a really nice wave, but it doesn't do a huge amount for the time being. There is a complete isolation of Caracop as they flash over the wall for him. They left him alone. It's 1-for-1 overall, but you've lost a huge source of damage as Jarvan wants to continue the fight. Starts to see the shred coming out from Corki, forced to flash away. Goes back in with the Cataclysm, buying some time, grouping some people up. The chain CC is a little bit too much, but it is the Corki versus the world. He gets locked up. He should get locked down, but he's still alive. He's still alive. I don't know how Supremacy did it, but 0-2 is the only one left standing.
You can see that there is potential to be able to protect these carries, and unfortunately Caracop was kind of by himself, got double flashed over the wall, but in the end it was Sensio doing enough damage. And when you're grouped up as Supremacy, I feel like there is a possibility to try and peel away, even though Olaf can become unstoppable. You know, you have the healing from Sanji, you have the Miracle Kick, you have Just Fake's explosive cast as well, and sometimes there is a way for you to try and defend these carries, but my god, this Olaf.
Oh, the exhaust, that's quite big, but is it big enough? Should be enough right now. Miracle flashes away, and it will be a kill. That should be a shutdown, a huge shutdown for Caracop. So realistically, you'd probably call that worth at the end of the day.
Yeah, huge shutdown. You can see how much gold that Caracop has as well. Most of the gold in this team. But yeah, this Olaf, 14,500 gold. Hasn't Guardian Angel completed as well. So if Olaf was hard to take down before, he's going to be even harder now, because now he's just going to be able to come back to life and do a lot of damage. But that Dragon fight was really, really interesting. It's more of a little bit of an overextension for Aphelion in the end, and they were able to peel the Corki in the end and do enough damage. And You see the Corki's going for the Essence Reaver Solari, but interesting enough, third item looks like it's going to be going for Trinity Force, it seems like. I thought it might have been a Black Cleaver Corki, which is, I think is a hot topic at the moment with the Wild Rift community, but it does look like it's going to be Trinity Force as the third item. And interesting enough for Karakop as well, he's gone for the Runa's Hurricane to kind of get a lot of spread damage, especially when you're going to be having the likes of Camille and Olaf and Jarvan diving onto you. I really like this adaptation. Normally with Solari Charge Blade, you look for kind of that single target damage, but I feel like you're never going to really get that with the Kai'Sa this game. We're going to be more focused on trying to spread the damage across the side of Aphelion.
And actually, you can start to see Karakop's gold has shot up massively. He's at 3 really core items for the Kai'Sa. That's a kick.
Ooh.
Oh, the Black Shield wasn't there in time. That was clean from Miracle. Way too clean and too quick for May. And now they're going to be starting to push down towards that middle tower.
Yeah, so 4 versus 5 now, but what do they have up and available at the moment? They can try and get the mid lane tower, but they're trying to go back in, but bubble lands!
They bubble lands. They ice into the cask as well. An overextend from Aphelion, and now Supremacy are starting to punish them for it. They're going to take down the Jarvan, who's lost the GA. He forces to flash away, but he can't quite find the escape, and you can see that Olaf just hanging on the side lane like a lost limb, 0-2, just nothing able for him to do here. And they're going to go down towards that Baron. Maybe 0-2 fancies himself a 1v5 extravaganza, but he's going to need it.
Yeah, they're definitely going to need it. Camille jumping in a little bit too early, but here comes Olaf.
Here comes Olaf charging down. The exhaust has already dropped. Karakop now the target, forced to flash away, uses the ultimate to buy some time. There is the stasis as well, and they take down Olaf. But it's 1-for-1. At the end of the day, Olaf drops. He will eventually go down. You can see Fantasy wants to get the kill. It's a double kill for him, but he'll trade his life. Corki picks it up, and Karakop and Corki negotiated that fight with excellence, and they'll keep themselves alive.
I feel like Fantasy and 0-2 did their job though. They were just trying to stall the Baron. They were making sure that the Baron could not go down. But in the end, you can see exhaust going down on Olaf. Karakop having so many shields and everything available. The stasis going down as well. They had to use absolutely everything to try and kill this Olaf, and eventually they did. But Fantasy in the end could have maybe tried to go for a pentakill. Got double kill in the end. You can see the low health bars on the side of Supremacy, but yeah, in the end, they did their job. They wanted to just stop the Baron. They know that because Arrogance was dead, they didn't have a jungler available, so they knew that the Baron was a main focus for the side of Supremacy, but now is when the Dragon comes up very soon. And this is Elder Infernal Dragon, Scoundrel, so that's a lot of extra damage, and I feel like with the carries that Supremacy have now, with the Kai'Sa, with the Corki and these late game damages, late game damage scale champions, that it's going to be quite hard to deal with them now.
I think so. I think it's going to be a bit difficult now. You're at late game Corki, late game Kai'Sa stage. That kind of period. You don't have your GAs on Jarvan and Olaf as well. Remember, so those kind of get out of jail free cards are gone. Teleport's coming down towards this Elder Infernal. This is the time where you need to make something happen, but you've lost a lot of the resources and it lost a lot of the momentum that you were working with earlier. Oh wow, Olaf, he's just going in. They caught him off guard with the package. He's dead. And that will be the death of the Galio as well. As they're going in, they're trying to get the taunt off for the time being. There's a nice stasis coming out from the Corkis. They dive onto Karakop, but a beautiful disengaging cask coming out from Just Fake is enough to buy Karakop the space, and he does it. He executes them. That is a huge win for Team Supremacy.
That could be it. That could be the game. They have the bot lane wave. They're going to try and end the game. They don't care about the Elder. 40-second death timers for the side of Supremacy. And after being about 8,000 gold behind, it's the carries, it's the Kai'Sa, it's the Corki. We look back at the replay. I want to go back to the game. I want to see if they can finish the game. But in the end, Karakop just being that main late game damage. And that's it. They're going to try and end the game. They have the waves. 50 seconds left, Scoundrel. They've done it.
They've done it. They caught and punished too many mistakes here from Aphelion. Aphelions momentum swung the other way. And finally, the late game power of the Corki and the Kai'Sa came to fruition. But I just think that Supremacy got into the groove of understanding how to play these team fights, right? I think they were struggling to understand this strong Olaf. They were like, okay, like, how do we deal with this? He can just run us down. And eventually they kind of got to the point where they were much more capable of splitting focus, drawing Olaf out of fights, and being much better at kiting away as well.
100%. It's the late game carries that we were talking about as well. The Corki and the Kai'Sa, when they scale into late game and they have all this damage as well, they were just able to do it. But it started off well for Aphelion. This early first blood here, really, really well played by 0-2. And they were able to get trades off in the end as well with objectives. And in the end, Aphelion had like an 8,000 gold lead. But as I mentioned, it was them late game carries. It was Karakop, it was Sensio that was able to just dive in at the end of the day and just being able to self-peel as well on top of these carries. And in the end, it was them that came out on top. I feel like Aphelion in the end made a few little mistakes, maybe being caught in the mid lane, and as well as Jarvan being caught in the mid lane, and also that last team fight as well, Olaf being caught down in the duo lane as well. So even though Felion did have a gold lead, I feel like there was a few mistakes that allowed Supremacy to get back into this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this was one of those turning point fights where eventually when Olaf gets isolated, much easier for them to kind of focus him down. I think once Olaf was dead, there wasn't really that many credible threats to the rest of Team Supremacy, and Carrot Cop. Actually, I think Carrot Cop kind of got the groove of his ultimate use. This is a little bit of an overextension. Obviously, Fantasy Note came back in here and cleaned up, and I think that was one of the things that Supremacy were getting punished for, is when they were winning, they didn't know when to stop. But eventually, they were able to close things out much more consistently. The exhaust came in clutch a lot of these team fights, by the way. I think as well, some of these stasises, by the way, Stu, were so good. Like I was just been so impressed with the way that some of these stasises were used in the team fights, like baiting them in to the very last moment and then dropping the stasis and kind of keeping them there to be slaughtered by the rest of by Team Supremacy.
Yeah, 100%. I think going into this tournament, really, we know individually that Supremacy are really, really strong, micro-wise. They're able to do really, really well. It's just that how well they would play as a team, because they haven't been together as a team for a long, long time. And in the end, you can see the stats there in the end. And look at it, it's the Corky Kaiser show in the end. 8-3 and 9 on Carrot Cop, and Sensio 6-4 and 12. Just really, really well played going into the late game.
Yeah, I'd love to see the damage stats in these guys, see exactly how much damage these guys are putting out. Carrot Cop and Sensio almost certainly going to be topping their team, but it'll be interesting to see how much Olaf did. 28k for Olaf, but 40k for Carrot Cop. 40k damage on that Kai'Sa, but it was kind of a Kai'Sa's playground. Grouped up melee champions, just gets huge value out of Heracathian Rain as well.
Yeah, 100%. And it kind of goes back to the draft, really, as well. We were talking about really in the draft. You can see there, a little bit of a goal lead for Aphelion, but Supremacy somehow come out. I say a little bit of a goal lead. Sorry, over a 6,000 goal lead. So I was looking at the first part. The over a 6,000 goal lead for Aphelion, but just a few mistakes just allow Supremacy to come back. And in the end, you can see even the kills as well. 21 kills to 20. It was a really, really close game. And yeah, like I said, going back to the draft as well, you can see that on the side of Aphelion, they didn't really have enough damage. They have kind of the early game threat. They have that team fight pressure as well from the Morgana, from the Camille Galio. But you can see when it gets into the later stages, when you allow this Corky and Kai'Sa to come online with how much self-peel they can bring with the stasis as well, they were able to just carry out the game really in the end.
Absolutely. It was a really, really excellent game. Let's have a look at the play of the game to see what the highlight moment from that first game was. I think there was a lot of really good highlight team fights, but it feels like one of the turning point fights maybe for Supremacy will be the one that we look at.
Yeah, 100%, and it's going to be the one around the Rift Hell. It was just really, really close to the end. This is one where Carrot Cop a little bit overextended as well. But you can see that Olaf, when he's isolated by himself, the Acathian Rain and all the damage that Carrot Cop can do in the end is really, really strong. But in this team fight, you can see that Carrot Cop's kind of by himself, being able to use the ultimate to get into the back line as well, dodge out all the abilities. But in the end, a little bit overextension. But you can see that at this point of the game, this is where you felt like Supremacy could be able to get the advantage. You can see that it was kind of the turning point, as you mentioned as well. Even though they did overextend at the end, you can see in that 5 versus 5 team fight that they're able to kind of trade evenly. And as the game gets later and later, as Kai'Sa and Corky get more and more items, it just gets more and more difficult for Aphelion to try and get onto them carries.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a 1-0 lead to Team Supremacy here. Even though Twitch chat were massively in favor of Aphelion, it's I think we've got a tough series in our hands here. If that first game is anything to go by, we'll see. Is Aphelion fighting for their lives to stay in the Wild Rift European Championship, with Team Supremacy looking to book their slot further on in the lower bracket. For the time being, we are going to take a quick breather. When we are back, we've got one more game in this series, or maybe potentially 2, depending on how Aphelion does, and to see who can book their slot further on in the tournament.
Ready?
Welcome back to the Wild Rift European Championship. I'm Scoundrel, joined by Stu, and we have more games to come. Of course, could be one if Supremacy win, could be two if we see a bit of a resurgence from Aphelion. And given their performance, it was not an easy win for Supremacy. That was definitely Aphelion's game to lose, it felt like, but Supremacy able to claw their way back. Pretty exciting game though, Stu, honestly. Probably the best game we've had, or at least the best game that I've casted, I think, on the Wild Rift European Championship so far. So back and forth all the way.
Yeah, definitely one of the closest games that I've definitely seen from the WREC so far, and it just shows how close these lower bracket games are, and just shows that both these teams and all these teams in the lower bracket are just putting themselves on the line, because it's do or die now, and especially for Aphelion, they have to try and adapt during this draft, maybe look for maybe a different sort of draft, and maybe look for a sort of late game carry that you can see on the side of Supremacy, so they don't fall into the same traps that they did last time. So yeah, do or die now for Aphelion. They're going to have to see what happens as we get into our second game.
Well, let's take a look. Obviously, Hell's on the sidelines, ready to. Oh, I think we're going to have a quick look at the bracket actually to have a look at where we are in the tournament. So we'll quickly do that before we hand over to our boy Hells to talk about some of the key points. You can see Aphelion versus Supremacy currently being underway. Weigers have already secured this place in the next round of the losers bracket. But of course, tomorrow we're going to have Blows and Entropic and Mood versus Control to see which of those teams will continue their advancement and keep themselves with a hope of winning the Wild Rift European Championship. But now we have Hells on the sideline ready to talk a little bit about some of the key moments from the last game and what we should be looking forward to in the second game.
Yeah, on to the key points. And this was a very interesting game indeed. And I want to say, I felt I had a great draft, but I want to say something with this. They had a great draft for the early game and the mid game with the Olaf. They executed it well. They were ahead a lot. And Aphelion was actually able to get full control of the map. We saw their dominance throughout this entire game. But then we get to the later game, after the full control of Aphelion on the map, where Supremacy had these amazing team fights. And the late game composition of Supremacy allowed them to do a little better than Aphelion in the very late game. And that was really their whole power. And they abused it perfectly. They had that one instance at the Dragon where they were able to catch out an enemy and get a free kill and win. And after that, the Kai'Sa was able to get 4 items, and then it was really over. Supremacy basically drafted for the late game. Aphelion drafted for the early game. And Supremacy was able to come out on top, capitalizing on the mistakes from Aphelion. So that was it for the key points about this. And back to the casters. It's Cameron Stewart to get into the draft.
Thank you so much, Hells. I'm very excited for this one. I think maybe see a bit of a shake-up. I actually really loved the draft from Aphelion. I think it had legs. It clearly did what it was supposed to do. It was just the fact they lost the momentum and they weren't able to close out. And I think that was partly due to just some silly errors in map positioning that kind of gave away too much for free back to Supremacy. But I think they definitely had things to work with from that first game. So let's see how the second round of picks and bans plays out. Stuart, what do you want to see? Do you want to see a ban on the Olaf? Like, that was definitely a problem. Do you want to kind of like put Aphelion into a more awkward spot if you're Supremacy, not let that early game get away with so much?
I want to try and see some sort of, late game kind of guarantee, I guess, on the side of Aphelion. As you said, they executed it really, really well in terms of their previous comp with the early game and the mid game, but it was just the late game that were kind of lacking. But interesting enough, Aphelion deciding to stay on the blue side for this second game. So going to try and look towards his first pick priority as well. And for the moment, the same bans for now is going to be Thresh and Fiora, but we're going to be looking and seeing what they can prioritize as that first pick. The Corki, interesting enough, is the one that is going to get banned out.
Yeah, Corki, that was probably one of the big problems, I would say, like a very, very safe carry that you can play through the mid lane. The set is going to be taken off the board here. Wonder if Supremacy are saying, well, we won't fall for that level 2 Olaf trick again, so we're not particularly worried. I think that was definitely a problem that gave them the platform for kind of like accelerating the game. Ahri ban is an interesting one. I would suppose targeted towards Sensio, but it's definitely a very odd ban that you don't tend to see at competitive level too much. And now we're on to that final ban here. Jace still on the cards, of course. We have the Olaf, and I think Jace will come through as the ban.
I feel like on the side of Supremacy, that they'll take this. They'll lose one champion, which might be Camille again, but then they get the 2 picks again. In the previous game, they got Gragas, they got Lee Sin, which are 2 really strong power picks, and Aphelion only got 1. And this is a great thing about playing on the red side sometimes, is that even though you lose out on that first pick, you're going to trade that for 2 picks over on the red side. But there's a lot of time being whittled down here on the side of Aphelion. They're really thinking about what to pick, and it is going to be that Camille again.
I think Fantasy Note played a good Camille, but it's now about whether Supremacy want to give over the Olaf and the Galio again. Galio could be a very viable first rotation on the red side here if you wanted it for Supremacy and you deny that very strong Galio-Camille combo. It's just about whether they felt that was that much of a threat. And I think, if you give Aphelion the chance, they might end up drafting a similar style of composition that worked so well for them. I think the question that Supremacy is going to answer for us is whether they were that concerned about it in the first place. Going to go for the Orianna, so very big, powerful pick that was actually banned, I believe, in the last game.
Yeah, interesting priority on the side of Supremacy. Could be mid lane, because we know that Karakop likes to play these traditional carries in the Dragon lane. But interesting enough, there is a very, very high priority on Orianna. Gragas still open, Lee Sin still open if Miracle wants that again as well. As you mentioned, Orianna was banned last game, so maybe they just want to take that away because they feel like maybe Aphelion is going to pick it instead. And Jax as well, which I think is the other champion that got banned in the previous game as well.
Yeah, Jax is open this time round, so we could potentially be seeing some Jax antics in the jungle here. Let's see where Aphelion want to shift their priorities, whether they go back for that Galio to secure that combo, whether they go for the Morgana, which was, I think, versus a Jax and Orianna, Morgana could be a relatively decent shout. Obviously, your Black Shield doesn't tend to last long versus Orianna, but it could, protect against certain things. But it'll be the Lee Sin. Nice pickup. It's a decent pick into the Jax specifically. Can be a bit more aggressive before Jax gets too strong. Maybe the Galio or the Morgana would be still open for consideration here for Aphelion.
Yeah, again, Aphelion trying to go for the early game spikes, and Diana as well, another great team fight. And again, it looks like Aphelion are going more towards this team fight comp. They already have the ultimates for Camille and Diana to kind of lock down the members of Supremacy, and they have the early game pressure from the Lee Sin as well that can look to try and roam around the map, which I felt like they didn't really have in the previous game. But now Rakan as well, we're seeing 2 very, very different drafts this time. Galio not being picked at all, and Lee Sin, interesting enough, not being picked on the red side and being left over to the blue side for their second picks. But going to the second ban phase as well, we're seeing Orianna could be played in the Dragon lane. It's going to be interesting to see what the bans come out for Supremacy. Will it be them Dragon lane champions, or will it be kind of the mid laners? Morgana, very, very strong champion at the moment. Interestingly, didn't get picked in the first round, so they're not going to be able to play the Morgana this time around. But I feel like Aphelion already have a really good all-round team comp. They have, like I said, the early game damage and the early game pressure from Lee Sin. We also have the late game pressure of Camille and Diana in there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, there is, when it comes to, I talk about this a lot, when it comes to assessing late game, I don't tend to draw too much on the power of a champion unless it's something like Vayne, which is just so obnoxiously good in the late game that that's going to be a win condition for you. I always think about how a team actually wins with their comp in the late game. It doesn't matter how good that champion is, if it can't do its job, right? A Vayne can still be shut down by certain elements of an enemy comp, no matter how far into the game you go. So I think that's one thing that we should keep our eyes on. Even though they've got the scaling potential of the Orianna and the Jax, it's about how they're choosing to activate the Orianna and the Jax. Are they going to be split pushing with the Jax to win? Are they going to be trying to play around teamfight and Orianna's presence in the late game in that way? That's something that we kind of want to keep our eyes peeled for, as the bans have now concluded. The Morgana and Galio have been taken off the cards here for Supremacy. They kind of went all the way through that first pick phase, and they will get banned away. And Darius, strong anti-melee champion, gets locked in here for Team Supremacy.
Yeah, it feels like it is going to be the Dragon lane Orianna in the end. They are leaving it, for the last pick, for the flex pick, so they could choose whether to put the Orianna in the mid lane or choose to put it down in the Dragon lane. So no surprise that the Darius gets picked up as a Baron lane champion, which means that Jax will be going into the jungle. And interesting enough, Veigar is the one picking up the Kai'Sa this time around. So again, more late game insurance now on the side of Aphelion, and also the Nami as well. So kind of taking a page out of Supremacy's book for this second game.
I mean, Nami and Kai'Sa is super strong, but the Yasuo, is that Yasuo mid lane, Orianna, Rakan bot with the Jax and the Darius in the top side of the map? That's very interesting. Obviously, the Rakan and the Orianna are your kind of like supporting cast for the Yasuo in this sense. Just feels a little interesting to see that one come out. Obviously, it means that we'll have Darius shoved in top versus the Camille, which is technically a good matchup for the Camille. And then we have the Darius versus, sorry, the Yasuo versus the Diana, which can go either way depending on what point you engage in that lane matchup. So very interesting. Aphelion have gone back to their traditional kind of comp, whereas it actually feels like Supremacy are the one that have switched things up this time around.
Yeah, I feel like they've kind of switched around in terms of comps, really, to be fair. I think Supremacy, the ones now they're going to look to try and go for these team fights, look for the wombo combo. You can see that the wombo combo is there, the quickness from Rakan, the knock up into the shockwave, into the Yasuo ultimate as well at the same time. And it's going to be the side of Aphelion now that are going to be trying to peel for this Kai'Sa. You got the Nami to peel, you got the Kai'Sa that's going to look to try and defend themselves as well against this Supremacy lineup.
Who do you think is going to win, guys? Make sure you're getting your votes in the chat. A lot of Aphelion supporters last time round. Has it changed your mind now that Supremacy have ended up winning that first game? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. We'll obviously show the results later on in the game itself. But Stu, what do you think compositionally? Who is your money with this time round?
I mean, Supremacy do have a pretty good team fight comp on the other side as well. You've got the Kai'Sa. You know, Kai'Sa, one of my favorite champions. I think I always have to go and vote for the team that has Kai'Sa on their side. But it's going to be about trying to get onto the Kai'Sa and how easily Supremacy can get onto the Kai'Sa. I do feel like Aphelion can come out on top in this game because they did have the early game advantage as well in the previous game. But again, as you mentioned before, and as I mentioned as well, it's just a little mistakes for Aphelion that allowed Supremacy to come back into the game previously.
Let's see. It's going to be a hard one. Aphelion maybe having the weight of being kicked out of the WREC on their minds in this particular. I think we get the knock up here for the bot lane already. Huge amount of damage coming down.
Yeah, a lot of damage on the side of Mei already, and you can see that there is that possibility of the Rakan as well and how much damage that they could do as well. But you can already see that Arrogance is moving down to this duo lane already. Might be trying to look for engage. There's a fight in the duo lane as well.
Yeah, and it's going to be first blood. Caught in HD. Arrogance picks up the first kill of the game. Over aggression from Sanji gets punished. That's a good start for Aphelion, and now Senshio has to be a little careful. He doesn't have the support of his jungler just yet, and Lee is already making his way up towards that mid lane.
Yeah, at least in the end, not being able to go is like my mind's telling me no, but my body's telling me yes. But luckily, he went with his mind there and he didn't follow up on the Q. But you can see the early aggression already from the Lee Sin and in this duo lane as well. As you said, a little bit of an overextension, but I felt like it was a bit of an interesting jungle path for Arrogance. He decided in the end, oh, there was another exchange as well in the mid lane. But interesting enough, Arrogance didn't go for the Raptors in the end. He just went around, done his red buff, and then went down to his golems as well and was like, yeah, I'm just going to level 2 gank in a duo lane because of the overextension.
Yeah, I mean, it was just super aggressive from Carrot Cop and Sanji. And like you said, it was just good timing on the level 2 gank there coming out from Aphelion, specifically from Arrogance, and already off to a relatively good start with a small gold lead to work with at this time. You can see they are trying to funnel Miracle as much as possible. He wasn't able to go for the blue invade on Lee's side, but will now work his way towards his own blue side jungle, which has got a decent amount of vision control on the entrances and in the jungle itself.
Yeah, they're going in the bot lane again. You can see how much damage the bot lane of on the side of Supremacy could do, and there's a lot of fights in the barrel lane as well, but no one going down just as yet. But you can see that Supremacy is still playing really, really aggressive down in this duo lane, even though the Lee Sin could be there again. And that's kind of what I wanted to see for the side of Aphelion. You know, they did really well in the previous game with their kind of early game aggression, and also because they have the Lee Sin now, they kind of need to go for this early game aggression to try and get an advantage early on. It does look like they've got that already, nearly a 1,000 goal lead already at 3 minutes, which is not really too much, but a goal lead is still a goal lead. Now Arrogance looking up into the barrel lane as well, but Honeyfruit, luckily for Just Fake, just comes up in time and he's able to heal back up. But Arrogance is not finished here. They're both trying to invade the golems for now, but even more aggression as well down in this duo lane. And I like the duo lane is definitely the talking point, especially with Karakot being able to do so well in the previous game. Now on this Orianna, another late game scaling champion, a little bit different to the Kai'Sa, but we're going to be seeing how that that makes it a little bit different, but it's going to be engaged in top lane.
We're going to get the engage straight onto the Darius. Another kill set up for by Arrogance, and he'll reap the rewards. Another good start for Aphelion. This time not actually relying on a level 2 cheese, but much better map presence and doing exactly what the Lee Sin is designed to do in the jungle, which is just put pressure early where Jax is unable to respond. And you can already see that gold discrepancy opening up between the two junglers. Miracle falling behind pretty heavily compared to the Lee Sin.
And this is kind of the problem with Jax, really. You don't really have that early game pressure of the Lee Sin. You'll most likely see Jax's, try to farm up as much as possible and look to maybe split push, which we saw a lot in the Horizon Cup last year as well. But now Miracle's going to know that the Rift Herald is going to be started up and Arrogance is there as well. But you can see there, Miracle's pretty much nearly a full level behind already from the side of on the side of Arrogance as well. And that's not something you want to be in for the side of Jax. Obviously, you don't really have that sort of early game pressure that I mentioned for Jax already, but they're going in on Baron lane again.
Yeah, trying to put pressure on. They will end up losing the mid lane in the time being. So again, pressure on the Baron lane is resulting with good, swift decisions coming out from Team Supremacy. Wow, I can't talk. Supremacy in mid might actually let the first tower of the game go down here, but they don't quite have the minion wave to work with. They are desperately shoving that in. They are racing against the top side of the map. Zero Zoo. He flushes in. He actually catches him off guard, but that is going to be the exhaust coming through. Will trade back. Beautiful outplay from 0-2 to flush away from the knockup. Does end up losing first tower of the game over to Supremacy, though. We'll take a look at what happened here. Stun onto Mei. You can see here they go in beautiful double knockup straight into a beautiful shockwave as well. That was Miracle then securing the kill mid.
Yeah, Supremacy in the end prioritizing that mid wave, prioritizing trying to get it. And in the end, you can see kind of the problem that you might have if you're on the side of Aphelion with not a lot of wave clear in the mid lane. You have a Kai'Sa that has really, really short range. And you can see that because you have to walk up so far and because you kind of can overextend a little bit, you can see that Supremacy in the end were able to take the mid lane tower in the end, which allows Supremacy to kind of roam around the map a little bit more. But yeah, that dual lane play as well on the side of 0-2, as you said, being able to flash the tornado into the ultimate as well, pull Yasuo in. And even though Yasuo did have the exhaust at the end, 0-2 was able to get the nice cheeky solo kill that we love to see.
Even game again, realistically, at the start of this match. Carrot Cop scaling up nicely, but it is the jungler from Aphelion that is really powering his team forward. 0-2, I've been impressed with this guy, by the way, Stuart. I've really been impressed with 0-2. I think he is maybe a name that we need to keep our eyes on. Beautiful mechanical outplays from this guy. In both games, really feels like he's had a huge impact for his team, and just taking on Sensio like that, even with the exhaust, through the exhaust, and able to get the kill was very impressive.
Yeah, 100%. You can see that Aphelion, can have that, and you can see that the tables have turned for Twitch chat. I think the first game definitely helped him out a lot, but now Sensio and 0-2, they're fighting again. It's another 1v1.
It's the exhaust that comes through. Unfortunately, level disadvantage. He's forced to flush away. He dodges away from Sonic Wave, but he flush kicks. He was never escaping that four-man dive with the Herald being dropped on the bottom side of the map here. And you can see they're trying to respond on top side. Will be tit for tat, tower for tower at the end of the day. And I actually like what I'm seeing from. They're going to try and knock up. Charm comes through into Fantasy Note, who will just jump over the wall.
Lost a turret.
I think he's trying to delay the back so that maybe the Rift Herald gets a second charge off. But I think the minion wave, is it going to do enough? No, I think we're going to get a second charge. It's a decent use of the Rift Herald.
Yeah, very, very good use of the Rift Herald. I'm not too sure if it actually did get a charge in the end. Oh, yeah, it did in the end. Yeah, just eventually did in the end. But yeah, as you mentioned, really, really good use of Rift Herald. But what I really like for Supremacy at the moment is that they're being reactive. They're not just sitting back. They're not farming up. They're trying to trade in objectives. So even though, we talk about the start of the game with the mid lane trade, they got the mid lane tower in exchange for a few kills. They now just got the Baron lane tower for the duo lane tower as well. So not just sitting back. They're not trying to farm up and kind of say to Aphelion, look, you can just take whatever you want. We're scaling up into the late game. They're actually taking it to Aphelion as well at the same time, just saying, okay, we're not going to let you run over us. We're still going to try and trade across the rest of the map, and they still have that mid lane priority as well. They still have the mid lane tower up and available for Supremacy.
This is a close game, Stuart. Tense for the stakes that are on for both of these teams. Obviously, Supremacy have got a little bit of a cushion. But a win here would secure them a advancement in the losers bracket, whereas Aphelion, they are holding on right now. Feels like it's arrogance and 0-2 versus the world, but they are definitely putting up a good fight. And Fantasy Note having a good game on the Camille once more. Carrot Cop is accelerating away from his opposite number though. Nearly at 7k gold in his back pocket. He is the richest person on his team and also the scariest person as the game progresses.
Yeah, but even though you don't normally see Oriana as that late game carry, and we saw in the last game as well, even though that he was on the Kai'Sa, still getting that gold lead and still showing that he could do really well. But Sanji and Sensio need to be a little bit careful. Kai'Sa and Nami are roaming down as well, but I think they should be completely fine unless
they're going in. Sensio doesn't have that flash, tries to dive across the wall, doesn't quite get it, and still getting caught out by these 4-man roams. Time and time again, this seems to happen, just an overextension and lack of vision in their own jungle. And it's going to lead to losing out on this Cloud Dragon. Gets taken down way too quickly. Nothing they can do about it. And I don't even think they're going to be able to take down that Herald. I think that's going to go down too quickly also. We're going to see a fight here, and a fight that Supremacy are not particularly well equipped to take. And they go in. That's going to be the stun straight on to 0-2. As Nami ultimate, they're going to have to sacrifice their team, you feel. As Carrot Cop flashes into a pit, he can't escape from this situation. And that is a huge win from Aphelion. Huge win from Aphelion. They lose the Rift Herald, but they get a massive win around the objective and now can potentially push down mid lane.
Yeah, they're going to look to try and get this mid lane tower now, and that will open up the map so much for Aphelion, as you can see. Nice and easy in the end, but Supremacy, getting a little bit caught out in the duo lane. Yasuo getting caught out, which allowed Aphelion to be able to take that dragon. And in the end, Supremacy were like, okay, we're going to try and take the Rift Herald. But they were so slow with taking the Rift Herald. And as we look back to this fight as well, really good ultimate by 0-2, and also the Nami wave as well by Mei. And Carrot Cop, unfortunately, maybe misplacing his flash a little bit and flashing back into the pit, which is not somewhere he wanted to be. But yeah, as you said, 3,000 gold lead now on the side of Aphelion, and now it's all about Aphelion. It's all about what they're going to try and do to try and accelerate this gold lead. Now you can see in the previous game they were trying to do the same thing, but a little bit of a few oversteps on the side of Aphelion allowed Supremacy to get back into this game. And it's actually Sanji, the one that's playing aggressive this time. But I feel like this time, Aphelion are a bit more well-equipped for the late game. They have the Kai'Sa, they have the Diana, they also have Camille, which was in the last game as well. But I feel like in the last game, they didn't really have that sort of late-game threat. But this game, they definitely have a few champions that could definitely be a big threat for the side of Supremacy.
But they need to get there. They need to get to that point where they are a big enough threat to really worry Aphelion. And you've also got to remember how good like Kai'Sa and Diana are in their own right, and Camille too. And you can see that Aphelion are trying to split map pressure right now. They're trying to put waves into both top and mid and bot as well. They're just trying to shove waves in every direction, just continuously pressure out and allow them to push their vision line up through the river. You can see vision has been excellent for Aphelion all game and very lackluster for Supremacy. And I think just by being able to control these waves, it's allowing Aphelion the chance to push this vision wave up, push this vision line up, and try and make those catches that they've been making in the side lanes, which has been catching, honestly, been catching Supremacy off guard for the most part.
Yeah, Supremacy trying to get a little bit of vision control in their own jungle. They don't have any vision at all in at all really on the map. To be fair, we talk about vision. There's a ward down in the river, which eventually they get a little bit of vision, but as you said, it's more this game. It's been Supremacy the ones being caught out in the side waves, and Aphelion doing really well to try and use that early game pressure. But now Fantasy Note could be in a bit of trouble, but he has help. Yeah,
and again, it is Sensio looking for a 1v1 when he does not have the vision to support it. And just, I'm not sure what Supremacy are doing on the map right now. How is it that Aphelion are able to rotate their units across the map, rotate their players across the map with absolutely no repercussions? And it just cuts in the same way. It's a great kick as well. Straight into the Darius take. Gets taken down very low. They're going to pull Sanji in. It's a beautiful knock-up. Has to go into the stun, but it's not there. For a miracle, he doesn't have it ready. And he goes down. And Carrot Cop now the focus. He'll be chunked into the low amounts of HP and it'll be unstoppable for 0-2. That will be Baron now for Aphelion.
Yeah, Baron indeed. And again, you have to look at Sensio again, as you mentioned, being caught out in that duo lane. And if he was there for that fight instead, it would have been huge. I think Rakan got like a 4 or 5 man knock-up in the end. And if you have Sensio's ultimate to follow that up, that's the way that Supremacy can win. They have the wombo combo there. but they're never groups. They're never even a stalemate, really. They're always, I feel like, at a disadvantage in all of these fights. And as you can see, the Nami wave was absolutely huge, again, by May, knocking up multiple members. But look, the knockup was there. A Miracle tried to follow it up, but unfortunately for him, he can't do enough damage yet. He's not at that kind of a late game Jax that you like to see, you know, the 3, the 4 items that we like to see from Jax. But yeah, Sensio in this side lane, again, trying to play a little bit aggressive, but it's not working out for him. And Aphelion, I don't want to jinx it, but we could be getting our first 3-game series of the Wild Rift European Championship.
Oh, it could be indeed, and I think right now it looks like that's going to be likely to be the case. Aphelion just pushing down the mid lane with that Baron. They've been playing so well around the side lanes this game, catching Supremacy off guard. Supremacy just didn't have the vision, but they're going for the engage. Oh, there's a combo into the 4-man Yasuo ultimate, but it's not enough. Diana too tanky. They don't get the damage off. The setup was brilliant, but right now Aphelion are just too far ahead. They're going to push with Baron. This is going to be the end of the game, surely. It was a Hail Mary play. It looked damn flashy, but it wasn't good enough with Aphelion being just too far ahead. We are going to game 3.
Oh my god. I feel like it was just a little bit too late though for Supremacy. You can see that the Wombo combo is there. The threat is there for Supremacy. But they were just falling further and further behind this game, getting caught out across the map. And Scoundrel, we finally get a 3-game series in the Wild Rift European Championship.
We finally get a 3-game series. Yes, I cannot believe it. It's not something that's happened in this championship so far, but we expected the games to be closer in this part of the bracket. We expected these teams to be able to go blow for blow. I will say that I think Aphelion actually looked the better team across the 2 games in all, you know, in total. I think the Aphelion have looked the better team so far. Supremacy have kind of got a bit of a challenge, I feel. 0-2 has been an absolute beast on this Diana. Just so many good outplays, Stu.
Yeah, 100%. The Diana was definitely the... I feel like the pick, and I think May as well. I definitely a big shout out to May as well with the Nami tidal waves, which we'll probably see in these replays and in these highlights as well. But I felt like it was just Sensio. It was just on the sideways. It was just Supremacy just being caught out, and in the end, they weren't able to land the Wombo combo until right at the end. But it was just too little, too late for the side of Supremacy. And as you said, I totally agree with you. I feel like Aphelion has definitely been a stronger team in these first 2 games. If it wasn't for them small little outplays in that first game, they definitely could have taken the first game as well.
I think so, and I think Aphelion definitely looking at the favourites coming into this final game of the series. Can't believe we're going to a final game of the series. It's something that we haven't got to say too much on this broadcast thus far. I'm pretty excited. Aphelion have definitely surprised a lot of people coming in here. That was a beautiful, beautiful play, but it just was too little too late, you feel like, for Team Supremacy. They couldn't find those opportunities beforehand, and they were punished too heavily in the side lanes. I think Supremacy would, if they go back and look at that game, they need to think about their vision control and how little vision they really put down. Again, the Yasuo, it didn't really work. It didn't land. It didn't make a huge amount of sense for what it was supposed to do, and Sensio never quite able to make the 1v1s happen either.
Yeah, 0-5 and 0 in the end on the Yasuo, and even Just Fake as well, being really targeted as well in the Baron lane. We haven't spoke about it a lot, but Just Fake was dove, I think, 2 or 3 times up in the Baron lane. But I think multiple members on the side of Aphelion played really, really well. Fancy Not on the Camille doing really well. Arrogance as well with the early game pressure of the Lee Sin was so huge. 0-2 as well with the 1v1 outplays, and May as well with the Nami tidal waves. And I think overall Aphelion, a really, really solid performance. You can see the damage numbers there as well. Diana doing the most damage, and Kai'Sa didn't really do too much this game, but still can do enough damage with that late game scaling. As you can see, it was an even game throughout, but it was just them catches that Aphelion were able to find that allowed them to get into them 4 versus 5 situations. And even in the end as well, when the Supremacy did land that Wombo combo that we mentioned, it was just too little too late.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the end of the day, they just unable to really kind of make it land this time round. It was a beautiful play to watch, though, if I'm completely honest with you. Despite the loss, I think it was a really, really nice play to watch. Stu, final game, though, you know, that's where we're heading. What do you think needs to happen here for both teams? Like, is there a strategy that Supremacy can employ? Is there picks and bans that they can shift up? Or you know, Aphelion have shown they're pretty decent in 2 very different types of comp.
100%. I totally agree with you. I feel like if the sides are going to be staying the same again, it's going to be interesting to see how the bans are going to adapt as well. Will Supremacy be moving on to the blue side now? I feel like in the previous game, the two red side picks that Supremacy prioritized, the Jax and the Orianna, didn't really work too well. We didn't really see the Jax at all, and it was really, really hard for the Jax to kind of get going in this game.
Let's just take a look at the play of the game then, which was the highlight moment. If I had my way, it's definitely that 5-man Yasuo that resulted in nothing, but let's see which one the play of the game was. That Rift Herald play. That was honestly a really nice engage from Aphelion, honestly.
Yeah, 100%. It was the Dino Ultimate into the Tidal Wave as well. And that kind of what allowed Aphelion to be able to accelerate their goal lead and being able to take that advantage that little bit further and take us to a game 3.
Absolutely. That is exactly where we are going. When we are back, obviously we are taking a short break in a moment, but when we are back, we'll have that final game of this loser bracket round between Aphelion and Team Supremacy. Everything on the line for both of these teams, because if you lose, you're out. You go home, you've got nothing. If you win, you are through to that next round. You still have a shot at winning the Wild Rift European Championship. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss it. We'll see you soon.
I breathe fire, your eyes so bright, the dark will guide us through the night. Bye, bye, my love, I'll shine for you in the dark. The sky is lonely,
We're entering our third game of this losers bracket round between Aphelion and Supremacy. The first time we've had 3 games in the WREC, and the first time either of these teams will now be facing a certain elimination if they end up losing this match. Obviously for Supremacy, they had that game cushion. It was brought back by Aphelion in the previous round, and now we are all the way to the wire when it comes to these two guys. And I'm going to be completely honest with you, I think Aphelion have looked the better team over the course of the last 2 games. I think they have looked better all round, and I think realistically Supremacy need to do something pretty special to get control of that early game. They are giving away too much for free in the early game. They are letting, or they're giving control over to Aphelion, who have looked better mechanically, have looked better macro-wise, and I think in general have just looked more solid all round. I believe, actually, Stu, I was going to bring you in there, but I've been told that Hells is actually ready to have a chat. So let's have a chat to Hells about the key points for our third game.
Yeah, sorry guys, I just have to share this important info right here. So the draft was similar as last game, and what I mean with that is Aphelion had an incredibly strong early mid-game composition with the Lee Sin, and Supremacy had the late-game composition. Supremacy had a really strong late-game composition, by the way. They had that incredible combo with the Yasuo and the Rakan, and they had the Jax. But, well, first we're going to talk about Supremacy because they did quite a good job. They did quite a good job holding on. They did quite a good job holding on this game because they weren't too behind. But then throughout the late game, Aphelion did an even better job pushing through. We saw Aphelion constantly catching out at Yasuo. And even though Supremacy seemed to be doing fine holding on, because they were only like 3,000-4,000 gold behind, Aphelion just did much better. And they got that Diana super ahead in the game, and they were able to just completely wipe through the team every single time. So that's it for the key points. It's going to be very interesting to be watching the third game. And yeah, tossing it back to you guys to be casting the third game. Let's go on story.
Well, Stu, now I'm going to let you talk. Let's talk about this third game. What do you think? What are your thoughts heading into this final game of the series?
I think you mentioned it a little bit already, but the early game of Aphelion, I really don't want to see the Lee Sin really at all in this series. I think in both games, the Lee Sin has been definitely a high priority for both these teams. And I don't think you want to give over arrogance, the Lee Sin to arrogance. He's been really strong on the Lee Sin, and yeah, as you said already, it's about Supremacy. What are they going to look to try and do to kind of slow down Aphelion's early aggression? Because both times Supremacy have kind of drafted this kind of late game team comp, but it's the early game pressure that they're giving up, and it's kind of these side lane pressures as well that they're giving up. And in the end, that's what's kind of putting them on the back foot as well going into this third game.
I think so. I think also draft is going to be really important too. As you mentioned, the Lee Sin was very pivotal in that game and was previously taken off the cards. So Lee Sin definitely feeling like a key pick for this series overall. Miracle didn't. I mean, I don't think you can afford to be passive. I don't think you can afford to pick a pick like Jax and then just not play Jax the way that you have seen it played across many regions in the world. Too passive, let too much of the game get away from you. And I don't think you can afford to play Jax jungle when your laners are not as self-sufficient and able to kind of repel the kind of early game pressure that we were seeing this time around from Aphelion. Let's see how it plays out though. Again, objective fights proved to be the name of the game too. This time around, it was the Rift Herald that kind of caused the problems, and that decision to kind of desperately pick up the Rift Herald when they lost out on that first dragon is kind of what undid Supremacy in that first game.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. Now, I really want to know if Supremacy are going to be picking blue side or red side. There we go. We have to switch up. Supremacy are now on the blue side. I feel like this is going to change up the draft a lot in this series. Now that Aphelion on the red side, are they going to be, banning out the likes of Set, the likes of Jace? But there you go. There's a blue side ban for Lee Sin. Really like this ban as well. And it's just, this is what blue side allows you to do, even though you can get that first pick as well, but it allows you to ban out champions that are maybe not as strong, but just more picking champions that are kind of more focused towards the enemy team.
Absolutely. And you'll see here as well, they are maybe going to leave open something that they think is really strong. The Set does go down though. Maybe they leave open the Fiora for Just Fake. Like, it's something that he can play relatively well, and usually Fiora forms an early ban if you're going to get rid of it. We'll see. Maybe Aphelion chooses to do that. The Jace goes down. Fiora really the strong remaining power pick on the table at this point in time. We'll see if Team Supremacy choose to get rid of it, or they leave that open, and that decision there for Aphelion should they want to take it.
Yeah, both games, Felion has first pick the Camille, and the Camille is also still open. Interestingly enough, Supremacy bans set on the blue side, and they're going to be banning away the Camille as well. So I think, as you mentioned already, I think they're definitely looking to try and get this Fiora first pick, especially when you don't, ban it away as well. But now it's on the side of a Felion. Do they want to ban away this Fiora? Do they want to ban away something else? It is going to be the Fiora banned away. So looking at first picks now, you got the Gragas, you got the Varus, which we haven't really seen too much of this series, but he still can be a possible first pick for Carrot Cop. You have Garen, interestingly enough. I don't actually remember. I don't think Garen has been banned or. Well, it hasn't been picked, definitely, but I don't think it's even been banned in this series.
Not this series. He got picked in the last series, right? But not been picked in this series. It'll be the Darius that comes through this time around. Very early Darius. Darius is a pretty solid blind Baron lane pick. Like, he's also been flexed to mid occasionally, depending on the matchup. But yeah, we'll see the Lulu. Ooh, does that mean that Vayne is on the cards here for Baige? Like, it's an interesting thought. I would say the Jinx is significantly less viable in competitive, especially when you already see a Garen. But a Lulu does signify a Vayne, who is very good at dealing with Garens.
I like this because now on the side of Supremacy, you have to think to yourself, wait, do we have to pick Vayne ourselves? Is there going to be, a little bit of a problem? Instead, they go for the Corki, but interesting priority on Lulu, to be fair. It means that Olaf is up and available as well. Lulu Olaf is another really, really strong combo that we've seen before in Wild Rift. But again, it's more to do with like you said, that Vayne, and now it's going to be on the side of Supremacy. Do they want to pick Vayne here, or do they want to let it through? And if Felion don't pick it in this last pick that they have in the first round, I feel like Supremacy are just going to ban it away.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Supremacy feel like they have to. They go for the Olaf here, so they don't want to give Olaf over to anyone on the side of Felion, and think the Olaf Lulu was scarier maybe than the Vayne Lulu to them. Plus also Vayne outside of the Lulu pick is decent, but not absolutely insane. So I think, that was a relatively calculated decision here from Supremacy. You can see they were really thinking about that one. And now the question is, does Aphelion want to show their hand and go for the Vayne? Because you feel like Supremacy might end up banning it, but it's the Jarvans. So still essentially leaving that decision open to Supremacy, saying, do you think that we're going to pick Vayne? And if so, are you going to ban it?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the interesting point of this draft right now, is that if they're going to ban it away or not. But like you said, they're more focused on the Olaf picking away the Olaf instead. And we saw 0-2 in the first game as well be really, really dominant with the mid lane Olaf, but Lulu still has two, pretty good targets to use Wild Growth on. Garrus and Jarvan are still really, really good targets to use Wild Growth on. But I'm just really curious with this early game priority for, the early draft priority for Lulu. If you're not going to be picking Vayne as well in the first draft phase, what's the other focus? Unless it was maybe the Olaf, but Supremacy kind of
read it. Maybe they read it. Yeah, they might have read the Olaf. The Jinx is obviously something to think about. I think you could even think about having a Yasuo pickup for 0-2 to combine with the Jarvan and the Lulu knockup. I think there are options. There are things to think about for sure. I think you do become quite AD heavy, unfortunately, if you pick up the Yasuo. But it is the Vayne, so therefore called the bluff. Said, feel free to ban it. Feel free to ban it, if not, we're just going to pick it, and they did. They went for it.
But I feel like Supremacy should have known this as well. I feel like they definitely got something up their sleeves that they could have counter with it. It's going to be Xayah, very early game dominant, champion that can do well against the Vayne as well. Has the range, has the feathers as a sort of a target as well. And maybe they don't have the Rakan. Rakan was banned away with Ari on the side of Felion, so it's not going to be Xayah Rakan, but who else could it be? Could it be double enchanter support? Could it be maybe Nami again? I don't think I've seen double enchanters in the support role in competitive Wild Rift for a long, long time.
It will be Nami, which is a relatively solid pairing if you want to be aggressive. Also, Lulu sucks versus Nami, so it's difficult. I mean, Lulu sucks versus Orianna, which would be another really good bot lane pick to kind of thread into this comp, but. It is what it is. Still got a pretty lane dominant matchup here for Supremacy. A lot of pressure on Sanji and Carrot Cop's head to put pressure on the Vayne. Akali comes out as the final pick here for 0-2. That is super interesting to me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they definitely had to go for some sort of AP damage with Diana banned out as well, with Ari banned out. Orianna was up and available, but interestingly enough, we don't really see Orianna in the mid lane that much anymore. We mainly see her down in the duo lane, and with Vayne Lulu already been picked, they had to go for something else. It is going to be Akali. Now, Akali, I feel like is a pretty decent pick, especially with 3 squishy members on the side of Team Supremacy. You got Nami, you got Xayah, and also Corki that she can focus on. But it's just being able to get onto there as well, and you have to get through the likes of Olaf and Garen to be able to get to that backline.
This is interesting. I mean, obviously the Vayne is the real linchpin of this composition right now. She's the one that can deal pretty effectively with the Garen and the Olaf, depending on how late into the game we go. And I think the problem that Team Supremacy are going to face is they don't really have anyone that is going to immediately be able to delete the Vayne, right? You haven't got someone that's like Camille that can lock them down. You haven't got an assassin that can maybe kind of single out the Vayne. You have a team that runs at Vayne, and honestly, Vayne loves that. Vayne loves being ran at because she can kite for days, and that's the problem that I think Team Supremacy are going to face here. They really need to wrestle control of that early game and kind of snowball through the mid game, which is, from what we've seen, not been a strength of theirs in this series. So Aphelion, I feel, come in a good spot in this particular game.
Yep, get your votes in as well in Twitch chat, as you saw as well. It's going to be interesting to see what they vote for. They went for Aphelion in the first game, then they switched things up to Supremacy, but now it's the third game and it's the decider now. Sorry, I can't even get my words out. The decider between these 2 teams. You know, whoever loses this one is out the tournament. They have to try and go through the last chance qualifier and try and get to Barcelona. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned already the Aphelion's kind of early game pressure, but with the likes of you know, the Lulu and the Vayne now and the Akali as well, I feel like they don't have the same sort of early game pressure that they had in the 2 previous games.
Absolutely not. I think you know, really you're having to play through maybe the Darius and the Akali here, and you're definitely going to struggle at the first couple of objective fights. That's for certain. I really feel like that's where Supremacy are going to have a slight edge. You can see that Just Fake. This is a tough matchup. Actually, you do have to be a little careful. Really got to make sure you're always using your grasp proc as Garen to ensure that you're just going to trade effectively every time. If you don't manage to use your grasp bonk, I call it, then you have to kind of wait for another opportunity to go in.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a little bit, especially at level 5 as well. I feel like Darius could definitely do something. And with the stacks building up as well, you can see Just Fake already having a bit of a difficult time. He does have to take the honey fruit already, and the jungle is looking to try and help out the mid laners, trying to push out. And you can already see Sanji as well trying to rotate around and maybe looking for this first Rift Scuttler fight.
Oh, that's actually going in from 0-2, but he will back out using the Shroud, knowing that there was too much of a rotation, too much priority. I think this is a bit different. This is rough actually. Fantasy Note has actually got the barrier. He's going to force the flash away. There is an ignite. He ignites him. He bonks him. Oh no! I mean, I looked at 2 players who looked like they were playing with no hands, but it looks like Fake came out on top.
That was a little bit harsh. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, in the end, it was. There could be more fights as well. As Miracle went for the invade, but I don't think nothing's gonna come across from that. But yeah, in the end, it was the ignite difference. In the end, I feel like Fantasy Note tried to use the barrier to kind of predict when the ignite was going to be used and predict when Just Fake was going in, but Just Fake was like, okay, you use your barrier, you flashed in as well, I'm just going to bonk you, as you said, and just ignite you and you're dead.
Yeah, it was a really nice flash from Fake, honestly. He essentially knew that he couldn't sit in the trade with barrier up, so he flashes away. Now has level 5, by the way, looking to go in, doesn't quite have it, needs to look for the spin, but the bonk is there, it's bonk number 2. Probably going to die as the Cataclysm is forced, but that is a lot of pressure. Now, being essentially forced through top lane here for Aphelion. Great start for Just Fake, really popping off on the Garen to begin with.
Yep, you as a previous Garen main as well can realize the feeling of just bonking everyone, just especially in the laning phase as well as. Yeah, as you said, you know, a big lead at the moment for Just Fake. And as you said, more pressure as well in this top lane. Miracle, interesting enough, going over to the top lane now as well. But the problem is that the wave is pushing towards Fantasy Note at the moment, unless he does that and he uses his abilities to push the lane out again. But Miracle, I felt like wasting a little bit of time, but they're going to look to try and go in again, but nothing going to be coming across to that. Just going to be pushing out the wave and looking to try and go back and go towards these first objectives.
And that first objective will be something to keep our eyes on, because of course, not a particularly strong early game comp from Aphelion. Whether they can actually fight around these objectives is another question. You know, they will have the Cataclysm up and available for them there or thereabouts. They are hitting some item spikes. I just saw the Black Cleaver filter into Arrogance's inventory. I think the real question is how much of this they want to commit to with the Vayne. They'll have the package to contend with. They've got the Olaf mid game. They've got the Garen as well. I think the best option for Aphelion is to try and delay the start of these objectives as much as physically possible. But it doesn't look like that's going to be the case with Garen already rotating down. Maybe cross map is the option here, and Aphelion look like they agree with that.
Yeah, it looks like Aphelion are pinging the Rift Tower. Looks like they are just going to go for the Rift Tower in the end. But I think this is the correct play for Aphelion. As you said, you don't really want to fight as Aphelion, especially when you're against the Corki package. You got a Vayne on your team as well that can't really do that much in the early game. So I think this is good. This is good for the side of Aphelion. And this Rift Tower allows you to maybe put pressure into that top lane as well, which has been a really kind of struggling matchup at the moment for a Fantasy Note. But meanwhile, it looks like it's going to be a trade in first towers. But will Aphelion be able to get the first tower of the game? But 0-2.
0-2, a lot of damage. There's a great stun on the wall there. Flash forward from Bagay. They have to kind of commit to this now, but he's popped the ultimate. Has a huge amount of healing. They've repelled this at the tower. Massive, massive blunder here. That's oh no! I just said it. And Olaf. That's, by the way, that's broken. Olaf should not be able to do that on Wild Rift. But oh my god. Disgusting damage coming out from Miracle as he slaps them with the thunder.
Oh my god. I mean, yeah, Olaf definitely shouldn't be able to do that. Please, right, change that it's an AoE ability and not a single target ability. But I mean, in the end, it was Sanji that was actually tanking the tower that really could condemn in the end by Baigay as well. And 0-2 just using that shroud, using that invisibility to be able to kind of obey the members on the side of Supremacy. But in the end, Miracle, boom. It's just so fun. The flash, the E, and yeah, if you don't know, in Wild Rift is like a little AoE ability. It can do damage around as well, and you can see that that's what Miracle did in the end. It was able to deal a lot of AoE damage, and yeah, in the end, is a little bit of an advantage for Supremacy. They kind of won in the top side of the map with Just Fake, even though they lost the tower now. But a little bit of a goal lead for Just Fake. In the Dura lane, again, you're looking at Karakop again. He has another gold lead. That's 3 games in a row now. He has a goal lead down this Dura lane. Even though the early game has been a little bit of a struggle for Supremacy, I feel like Karakop is the one that kind of lifts them up a little bit in the early game.
Nice bubble there. They're going to try and land the CC onto 0-2. Has been forced to use that Lulu ultimate. The Wild Growth is there. It goes in. That's the exhaust, but a really well-timed Featherstorm from Karakop. It's actually a little bit of an overextension from Miracle as we see Arrogance use that Cataclysm to buy himself some time onto Miracle. What? Oh! I mean, Note didn't have a single stack, so that's why he did no damage.
I mean, it was interesting to say the least. It looked kind of cool, to be fair. But yeah, your Twitch votes, Aphelion 64% of the votes, but we don't have enough time for votes. Fantasy Note's going in.
Fantasy Note doesn't have his ult though, so because he ulted a 0H, he's not ulted a 0 damage onto Miracle, so kind of punished for his own mistake there.
Yep, unfortunate a little bit on the side of a Fantasy Note, and yeah, again, I feel like it's Karakop again being able to get the early game advantage, especially in laning phase. I mean, you're kind of expected to get an early game advantage against a Vayne, but it's just how they kind of shut down this Vayne, because they haven't really done a lot to shut down this Vayne at the moment. But even though Karakop does have a 1,500 gold lead at the moment on Vayne, once Vayne gets 3 or 4 items, it doesn't matter how much of a gold lead you have on Vayne. Vayne is still going to be that late game carry, and especially with Lulu as well, already has the Ardent Sensor, probably looking towards the Harmonic Echo stuff for throwing water as well, to just get more damage onto the Vayne as well. And it's going to be interesting as the shadows come out. Going to be getting a little bit of vision there. I think it's Sanji as well. Interesting enough, Karakop has decided to go for Navori Quick Blades, which we don't really see a lot as a second item. We see either like the Solari Charge Blade, or we're seeing a lot of Static Shiv as a second item, as sort of the crit item. But Navori Quick Blades, if you don't know, when you do crit, you just reduce the cooldown of your first, second, and third ability, not your ultimate. So it just allows Xayah to get a few more feathers out there.
Yeah, a few more feathers out there. Maybe cycle her CC a bit more effectively.
Yeah,
which might be important versus things like Darius, Java, and also the Akali. Looks like it's a big push down towards the Dragon here. And it's going to be a cross map. I like what Aphelion are doing, understanding that this is not the time that they want to fight. And when these two objectives are popping at the same time, they are ensuring that they are not crossing swords with Team Supremacy just yet, not trying to force and play around the package, and also just trading as much as they can on the other side of the map. It's good stuff here from Team Supremacy. Team Aphelion, but actually look what what I'm seeing from Supremacy right now, seeing that the bot lane is being focused by two members, trying their best to force down that mid lane as best they can.
Yeah, they're going to use a Rift Herald up into the top lane as well. They honestly might even lose a tier 2 tower. They're going to try and look to trade it as well in the bot lane. But meanwhile, it's a 3 versus 3 mid lane. Karakot playing with fire, just stepping up. You don't want to be stepping up too far against a Darius. But yeah, the Rift Herald is going to take a tower. But meanwhile, Aphelion is going to be taking a tower. I feel like this game is just a lot of trading at the moment. Trading objectives, and it could be a team fight. Nothing too crazy just yet, but I don't think you can take the inhibitor tower at this point, especially with the extra plates that it has as well.
No, absolutely. Let's get a decent amount out of this, but I'm going to be honest with you, Aphelion traded every single time on the other side of the map. Both Arrogance and 0-2 managed to pick up 2 towers, and that was the net result on the top side of the map too. 2 towers, but also use of the Rift Herald. So really good defense from Aphelion. And as you mentioned, it's a ticking time bomb with Vayne. Miracle, you would be tilting my friend Joey Skaggs out of this planet by taking red buff at 10 minutes into the game.
Yeah, normally you see the red buff like to go over to the AD carries, but Miracle is like, you know what, you don't need it. I need it more than you. And I mean, the Olaf is really, really strong, to be fair. You know, got that double kill early on, has the Black Cleaver and the Death Stance completed as well. Yeah, I mean, as I was briefly mentioning, it's been a very, very even game, and Aphelion don't have that early game sort of pressure and early game dominance that they've had in the past 2 games, but I feel like that's because their comp has not allowed them to do that this game. But as you said, you know, ticking time bomb at the moment for Vayne, and when you have a Lulu by her side as well, I feel like everyone's had that solo queue disaster of when the enemy team picks Vayne and Lulu, and you're like, yeah, okay, FF, 5 minutes. Go next game. I don't want to be dealing with a late game Vayne and Lulu.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's very difficult to deal with, especially at the high level of play. And, you know, you're looking at a relatively healthy Vayne, you know, at 7,700 gold. A little bit behind Carrot Cop, but you'd expect that given the early game dominance of that lane matchup. I do like the fact that Exhaust is in. That's one thing that I think is good versus the Vayne, the Exhaust. So at least you have like a summoner spell option that can at least do a little bit to lock down the Vayne where possible.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting because we do see a bit of a change up in some of the spells with the Dura lane carries, because Barrier did get nerfed in the recent patch. So we're seeing Exhaust a lot by Carrot Cop, which I think is really good. Like you said, especially against the Vayne, against Akali as well, and against Darius, just being able to reduce the damage output of the side of Aphelion. And then we're seeing heal as well for Baigay, and then May as well taking the Exhaust instead. And the reason why you see, you know, AD carries take Exhaust and supports take heal is that the heal will work with all of your items that you get with supports. So like Starfrafone Warsar, Harmonic Echo, Ardent Sensor, but also if you get into a situation where your support is not really near you and you're in like a 1v1 situation, the Exhaust will just help you out a lot, especially against the Assassin meta and the sort of Bruiser meta that we're seeing a lot in competitive play.
Still tense in this final game of the series. I am. Oh, it's close. 0-2 gets the kill. He just needs to follow up now. We're looking for Fake to do his best. He bonks. Can he get away? He does. He flashes. 1-for-1 overall. That is the Akali down, everybody. Akali down.
The most important thing, though, is that Supremacy do not have a jungler up at the moment for this next dragon. It is going to be the Infernal Dragon as well, so this is big. You know, if Aphelion could get the Infernal Dragon, being able to get the extra damage as well with his Vayne Lulu, but Vayne's playing a little bit too aggressive.
There is the Exhaust come through. Wild Griffith there as well. Now the wave to try and buy some time. That's the dunk, the huge Justice dunk, but Vayne's still going. She dodges away, but she can't deal with the Corki. She gets blown up. Carrot Cop still going on the back line as well. Jarvan on minimal HP as Miracle comes way back into the fray. Is it enough to go for Baron? Is this a risky play from Team Supremacy? They have a lot of damage left alive, but Corki not yet joining, and we have 0-2 joining the fight again. We'll have that ultimate up very, very shortly. Oh, this is risky. Oh, he steals it! He steals it with the ultimate. I can't believe what I've just seen. An absolute hero play from 0-2. Goodness gracious me. And now the pings on the Infernal Drake are coming through. Arrogance is going to walk straight over to it. And they kill the Nami. Oh no. Absolute bloody disaster.
I love how you said bloody in that situation. What a perfect situation. But yeah, I felt like both of us were just waiting for that moment.
I was just waiting.
I feel like that's all you really could do at the moment when Akali jumps in. But I feel like this team fight was so huge with Karakop's ultimate with the feathers, Nami tidal wave as well, and Vayne just couldn't really do that much. But somehow, some way, they somehow steal the Baron, and this game is still so close. But now with the Infernal Dragon as well over to the side of Aphelion will allow Vayne to do even more damage. You can see that Vayne does have the pressure, does have the capability in this game to be able to do a lot of damage, but needs to be careful of the crowd control over to the side of Supremacy, because they have the feathers, they have the Nami tidal wave, they have Garen that can bonk you as well. It's not crowd control, but it is a way of deleting Vayne off the map. And yes, Supremacy kind of, I felt like, had a little bit of a gold lead in this game. It had a little bit of control, even though the game was very even. But now the game is completely wide open, and 0-2 definitely the for me one of the highlight players of this series.
Yeah, absolutely. Even when you got attempted condemn onto Senshio, trying to catch out Fantasy Note by himself. He's buying time to them, allow them to go for that tier 2 top lane. This game is massively swung back in favor of Aphelion right here. It really felt like Team Supremacy with a team that were going to dominate from here on out. They're going to try and get straight onto Garen, who uses that Gargoyle's enchant to try and buy some time. Forward positioning from Bygay right now, but you can see the damage has already been done, and doesn't look like Supremacy want anything to do with that fight.
I feel like it's going to be really hard now for Supremacy. Vayne has 3 items now, probably going to be going for the 4th item very soon. Akali is looking really strong as well, getting a few items. And then you have the front line of the Darius and the Jarvan as well. And now we're just going to be looking towards these next objectives, really. I think that's going to be the main focus. I feel like with the Baron gone now on the side of Aphelion, they're not going to be able to push out the waves as much as what they would like to. I felt like, was the package taken? Yeah, the package was taken, interesting enough. I would like for Senshio to maybe wait a little bit for the package, because with Baron coming up very soon as well, it's going to be, I feel like it's a little bit early for the package. I feel like he definitely could have waited a little bit for the package, but you can see Vayne now got the Proto Belt as well, interestingly enough. So trying to get enough dashes. I feel like the Proto Belt is definitely a really interesting option for a boots upgrade. You normally see like a stasis enchant or something, but I feel like when you have the feathers, when you have Olaf and Garen jumping onto you, just being able to get that extra dash for Vayne, even though she does have the tumble, can be the difference in these team fights.
Oh, we're getting into a tense situation. Baron is spawning shortly, and we have the Elder on the horizon too. You can see pings coming down. They're going to try and catch out Olaf, who gets stunned against the wall, forced, or rather Garen, but does manage to escape. A defensive wave used in this situation, but those are resources that have now been expended that you would otherwise really want to have in your back pocket for this next fight.
Yep, Nami wave is gone down, and you can see how much Bygay is just playing really aggressive at the moment, with the Lulu by his side as well. Lulu by her side, sorry. And Senshio, oh no!
He gets caught out. The flash comes across. Fantasy is trying to buy some time here. He goes for the dunk, but the stasis is not quite on. But in the meantime, the back line is still going. Vayne kiting backwards. They're desperately trying to force her down. But it is a huge win right here. A massive win for Aphelion, and they are just running through the rest of Supremacy. Surely this could be game right now, pushing straight down mid towards the Nexus.
Yeah, 40+ second death timers, and I think that's it. I think Aphelion have done it. They were able to come back into this game, and again, it's Sensio, the one that gets caught out in the end. It happened a little bit during the previous game as well. He's getting caught out in the side lane, and again, it was Sensio being caught out in the side lane, and that's going to do it. Aphelion are going to advance, and Supremacy are knocked out of the WREC.
But we all got our predictions wrong. Doesn't look like Twitch chat got their predictions wrong, though. We are a winner for Twitch chat here at the end of the day. Aphelion move on, and honestly, Supremacy, you're right. Silly mistakes kind of cost them. They didn't need to go for the Baron there. They knew that the Akali was coming back up and it was going to be risky on low HP. Senshio getting caught on the side lane. There were decisions that Supremacy could have taken. There were simple decisions that would have maybe given them a better shot, but all credit to Aphelion They deserve that win. And especially 0-2. Especially 0-2. The man is an absolute
100%.
madman. I kind of talked about it in the build-up to these games. I think 0-2 was the guy that impressed me the most across those first 2 games. And boy, he did it again on the Akali this time round. That was absolutely awesome from the man in the mid lane there for Aphelion. And massive congratulations to them. It was a very hard-fought series, a great series of Wild Rift, Stuart. And they deserved the win.
Yeah, back and forth series indeed, but I feel like overall Aphelion definitely deserved to win this game, this series. And this game was a little bit different to our previous 2. We saw the early game kind of pressure and the early game dominance of Aphelion, but this game was kind of Supremacy that had a little bit of a gold lead, but they didn't really do that much with it. I feel like they were just trading. There was a lot of trading objectives, a lot of back and forth between these 2 teams, trading towers as well. And in the end, it was kind of the late game scaling, but 0-2 in the end. I think last game on the Diana, this game on the Akali as well, definitely one of the highlights of this series.
Yes, absolutely. It's not easy to play assassins in competitive either, especially when, Akali's received several rounds of being toned down. That shouldn't be a thing, by the way. There is no way that Olaf's...
This is the play.
Yeah, this is the play. Just wait for that second execution on the Akali. Outsmites. Still, you do a lot of damage with that, but it shouldn't really have been an outsmite. Just obviously the nerves coming in there right at the end. And that was that fight from earlier. That was the feathers were beautiful. Everything was so good here from Supremacy. These are the fights that were going really well for them, but they just weren't able to effectively close out. And this is the catch, unfortunately, on Sensio. Flash, Valkyrie can't get away any further. A little bit late on the stasis, and unfortunately, as we said earlier, when you've got a comp that relies on just running at your opponents, at this stage in the game, it's too easy for Vayne to keep herself safe.
Yeah, indeed, and it's a little bit unfortunate for the side of Supremacy, as they will be knocked out of this tournament. As you can see, the stats in the end as well. Even kill game as well, 11 kills to 11. I think this was definitely a lot closer of a game compared, well, not compared to the other 2, but a lot closer in terms of the early game, definitely as well. And I was
0-2
really
didn't even
interested
have
to
good stats, but he was absolutely MVP.
Oh, wow. I mean, 100%. I mean, the Baron still in the end was the turning factor of this entire game. The Baron still, if Supremacy got that in the end, I feel like they were the ones that could definitely have turned around. And you see the damage in the end as well, just even really across the board. It just shows how even this game was in the end, even though Vayne didn't really do too much damage, neither did 0-2, but it was just, like you said, kind of the decision making for Supremacy that kind of allowed Aphelion to be able to just kind of steamroll a little bit when it comes to the late game team fights.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good stuff. And you can see it was mostly in the hands of Supremacy until that final moments where...
Wow.
But I mean, the graph is maybe a little bit misleading. The biggest gold lead there was about 3,500. So it was very close pretty much all the way through the game.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think even though the graph does look like it's going quite high, it's only 3,500. It just shows how much of an even game this was. And the only gold leads that Aphelion had was right in the last minutes, right at the end. It was, the last, minute or 2 in the game was the only time that Aphelion had a gold lead. And it just shows you how important that Baron still was from 0-2, just waiting for the second execution. And unfortunately for Supremacy and unfortunately for Miracle, they weren't able to smite the Baron away.
No, unfortunately not. And Aphelion do move on. Let's take a look at the play of the game. Feel like it has to be the Baron Steel. Feel like the Baron Steel is the big one here for Aphelion.
Yeah, you can definitely look at the team fight as well, just a little bit after that with the Carrot Cop and the thing. But yes, I mean, it has to be the Baron still in the end. You're trying to see the smites and everything. I feel like Miracle was a little bit early actually on the smite. With Olaf, sometimes you can use your smite with your third ability if you know how much damage your third ability can do, and you can kind of execute kind of the way Nunu works a little bit, where being able to eat and smite at the same time. I feel like Miracle tried to do that, but it went down to, I believe it was about 200 health, and then in the end, Zero Zone was the one that was able to dash through and steal it. So a little bit of a misplay for Miracle, and unfortunately for him, that's going to cost his team the entire series.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to take a look at the believe the MVP of the series. I didn't quite catch whether it was MVP or interview, but we're going to have a look at the MVP, I think, of the series, which I don't think will come to any surprise who the MVP of the series is going to be, Stu.
Yeah, I feel like we all agree that it's definitely going to be Zero Zone, and throughout this entire series, insane plays. You know, the KDA doesn't really do it justice, to be fair. You know, even in the previous game, he didn't really have the best of KDAs. The amount of solo kill outplays he got in the second game, this Baron still in the end as well, he was the difference in this series, and he definitely deserves to be MVP.
Absolutely deserves to be MVP. In all honesty, what an amazing day of games that we've had for the Wild Rift European Championship. This second series was definitely something that you're going to want to go back and watch again. It was super awesome. I think every step of the way, those teams were fighting for the win. It's been pretty good. I think we should have an interview ready. I'll just confirm with we do have an interview ready. So I'm just being told that we are ready to get over to that interview with Hells. So we're going to chuck it over to him for a winner's interview. No, we don't. I didn't quite catch it. I thought that we had the interview ready, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Shall we take a look at the bracket so we can have a look at what's coming up over the next couple of days? Because of course we've still got some more Wild Rift action to go this weekend, and we have it now. So we're going to take a look. Oh wait, I think we got the interview ready just about now. So I think I've been told by our producer that we are ready to go on that. So fingers crossed we can get over to Hells for our winner's interview. Yeah, we can go now. Cool.
All right, finally on to the interview. Hey man, what an amazing series. That's the first thing that I want to say. What an absolutely amazing series. And you took the last game.
Thanks, man.
First game you lost,
Thanks, man.
but you took the last two. How do you feel?
Yeah, I feel absolutely amazing. The team has been preparing from quite a while for this, and I'm really happy they were able to execute it when it was most needed. The team, the players have done a really, really great job coming into this tournament, and our coach Asma has helped us quite a lot to improve from where we were initially. And I'm really happy to see them having improved so much, and we're looking forward to doing better in the coming days. We'll be facing Team Queso or Game Lord in the next series, so yeah, it's going to be a tough match for us there, but I'm hoping for the best.
Like talking about these higher up teams, how do you feel matching up against them? Because obviously Aphelion, playing pretty well, and you guys just won against Supremacy, and I feel like there is a lot of potential in this team, especially seeing the players. 0-2, Arrogance doing such a good job. What do you think about it? How do you feel playing up against those teams?
Yeah, I feel they've done a really great job, and yeah, of course, Game Lord, Team Case are really good teams in Europe, and they're gonna give us a tough fight, but we're gonna be ready for it. We're gonna have our own strategies coming up against them. So yeah, just hoping to do the best and execute it on the gate.
Yeah, I'm not going to be asking you about those strategies. You're going to be keeping those secrets for those games. So thank you so much for the interview. I'm really looking forward to see what Aphelion has to offer to these teams. And thank you so much for joining me on this interview. No problem. All right, back to the casters. Xander and Stuart.
I think Hells will be joining us soon as well to wind down the rest of the day. But that was really nice to hear from Aphelion there, and congratulations again to the team on the win. Massively deserved, and they'll be waiting for their next opponent in the next round, which, speaking of, I believe we can take a look at the bracket and see where we're going to be, because, of course, the winners bracket, both Aphelion and Weigers will have to face one of these teams, which is honestly looks pretty scary from the outset here, Stu. But of course, and looking at the bottom side, we have Weigers and Aphelion who have made their way through. Tomorrow we will have Blows Gaming and Entropic, and we'll have Nude versus Control. Two more close series to round out our sort of first round of the losers bracket, Stu.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I kind of feel for the loser bracket teams, because if you look at the upper bracket, you can see how many strong teams there are as well. And as you can see as well, looking at the schedule, you got Blows Gaming and Tropic, Mood Gaming and Control, and then you have Sunday as well. You can't forget about Sunday's big lead up to that last game between Game Lord and Team Queso.
Yeah, we've got some bangers on Sunday in the upper bracket, of course. Zero Zone versus Viv and Game Lord versus Queso, which I think is the matchup that everyone is really looking forward to towards the end of the weekend. But of course, that is about it for the day. I've got Hells back on the proverbial analyst desk, and Hells, how did you think about that last series? Really exciting stuff. Fairly on, I think, deserved the win, right?
I'm gonna be real honest with you. While you guys were casting, I was eating my popcorn watching that amazing series. It was such a good series to watch, and honestly, Aphelion deserved to win, right? Like, after we were talking about Supremacy being better, blah, 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 we saw the performance and Aphelion just did so well. So I'm incredibly happy after the series, and I'm very excited to see what they have to offer against some of the other teams.
You got any closing thoughts before we round out for tomorrow?
We finally got our first 3-game series. That's all I can really say, to be honest. I'm really excited to see what tomorrow's games are going to bring as well. Really, really close games, but we'll have to wait for tomorrow for that one. But yeah, really excited.
I'm really, really excited as well. I won't be on it, but I'll be there cheering from the sidelines, and I'll see you guys on Sunday myself. But make sure you tune in tomorrow for the conclusion of our first round of the lower bracket to see which teams will be advancing through in the Wild Rift European Cup. We'll see you soon.